1 minute earlier, history unfolded live on national broadcasts. Keir Starmer, the figure who shaped his reputation around truth and principle, abruptly stepped down before the entire country. The opposition chief departed in humiliation, and in that single instant the foundations of British politics split apart. Shock tremors surged through Westminster. The movement fractured into turmoil, and millions of citizens were left astonished. What was once meant as a pledge of guidance and steadiness collapsed into treachery, fury, and utter unpredictability. The question now is not only what toppled Keir Starmer, but whether his party itself can withstand the tempest that has only just begun. The clock struck 11:30 a.m. when the silence finally broke. For days, Britain had stood tense, stories spreading like fire across online platforms, whispers of leaked files, corporate financiers, and hidden gatherings drifting like venom in the atmosphere. Starmer had disappeared from public sight, rejecting interviews, dodging lenses, and retreating behind locked rooms while speculation devoured Westminster. His allies pleaded for calm, yet their appeals only echoed as despair. Officials scrambled backstage, arranging urgent conferences and frantic calls as pressure mounted hour upon hour until just moments ago the nation witnessed reality. Dark vehicles rolled up to headquarters, journalists crowded the entrance, and global lenses fixed upon one figure. When Keir Starmer eventually emerged, he seemed defeated before a single word left his lips. His shoulders slumped, his face drained, his gaze vacant. Correspondents inside sensed it immediately. This was the finale, and then the words arrived slowly, painfully, like a hammer smashing glass. "For the good of my party and my country, I resign as leader with immediate effect." The statement landed like a detonation. The room froze, gasps burst out. Within moments, online networks erupted in disorder. Tags of resignation, downfall, political turmoil rocketed to the summit of worldwide trends. Followers mourned, opponents celebrated, and within the ranks panic tore through every layer. Frontbench members rushed to issue remarks, some lauding his contribution, others attacking his shortcomings. Insiders muttered that he had dragged them into ruin, that his deception had destroyed them, that survival now demanded abandoning him. Yet the reality was harsher. This was not only the downfall of an individual, this was the disintegration of an entire cause. In less than a minute, the organization was no longer a collective but a broken battlefield, and for the first time in generations, Britain confronted the frightening vision of an opposition in wreckage. The departure was expected to bring resolution, but instead it ignited a detonation. Within moments of Starmer's remarks echoing across broadcast screens, Labour's core circle fractured completely. Senior MPs rushed to distance themselves, issuing carefully scripted declarations that resembled survival tactics rather than allegiance. Some applauded his contribution to Britain, while others outright branded his leadership a catastrophe. A leaked note from one Labour MP spelled it out in blunt language. "He deceived, he dragged us down. Now we suffer the cost." In barely an hour, Starmer had become political contagion, and his allies, once loyal defenders, scrambled to abandon the debris. Yet the turmoil did not remain contained in Westminster. It swept outward across the nation like an epidemic. Outside headquarters, enraged citizens gathered, chanting accusations into television microphones. Placards condemned him for betraying pledges, for fueling the very corruption he vowed to eliminate. On radio programs, lifelong supporters cried with fury, "I believed in him, I stood by him, and he betrayed us," one caller declared. Another fumed, "He promised reform but polluted politics further." The anger spread far beyond party loyalists, reaching every corner of Britain. People felt deceived not merely by a figurehead but by an organization that had built its image upon honesty only to collapse under scandal. Abroad, the damage was swift and devastating. American outlets framed the departure as Britain's political earthquake, the death of Westminster's credibility. French media likened it to a once proud force imploding live. German papers questioned whether Britain could even operate with such a broken opposition. What might have remained a domestic implosion became a global humiliation within hours. Britain's political reputation shredded before the world. Yet the fiercest storm still raged inside Labour. Behind locked doors, knives emerged. Senior names met secretly across London, whispering possible heirs. Angela Rayner's supporters advanced her case, portraying her as the only steadying hand. Others whispered of West Streeting, Yvette Cooper, even Andy Burnham. But none could disguise reality. This was not transition, it was conflict. Leaked WhatsApp exchanges revealed frontbench figures savaging Starmer with vicious condemnation. "We knew weeks ago he was doomed," one wrote. "His deceit ruined us," claimed another. Loyalty dissolved overnight, leaving only desperation. Westminster ceased mourning. Instead, it sharpened weapons for the coming clash. Meanwhile, Labour's oldest allies turned hostile with ruthless speed. Trade unions, the financial lifeblood for decades, wasted no time. Unite declared donations suspended until a replacement proved worthy. GMB labeled Labour toxic, unfit to represent workers. Without funds, without trust, without volunteers, Labour's campaign machinery ground to a halt. Constituency offices nationwide reported resignations en masse, phones ringing endlessly with furious members demanding subscription refunds. In Scotland, activists burned cards live online, proclaiming Labour dead. In Wales, silence lingered as local leaders refused to defend the National Party. On the streets of Manchester, Birmingham and Glasgow, demonstrations erupted. Ordinary people assembled outside offices, enraged that the party they once trusted had devolved into what they saw as an engine of deception. Inside headquarters, the atmosphere was described as apocalyptic. Staff broke down at desks, hurriedly rewriting CVs, knowing careers were sinking with the ship. Donors cut off funds overnight, some demanding repayment, others vanishing without trace. Emails exposed cancelled fundraising galas, scrapped campaign plans, and local groups threatening secession from the party entirely. A senior Labour insider confided to Sky News, "We face extinction. This isn't about care. This is about survival of Labour itself." The shock of Starmer's resignation had not quelled the storm, it had unleashed it. And as dust began to fall, one chilling question emerged. If Labour disintegrates completely, what becomes of Britain's democracy? Who will hold authority to account if the opposition crumbles? For a country already fractured, the answers loomed darker than anyone dared confront. By dawn, Westminster resembled not governance but battlefield. Starmer's departure tore open a power void, and within hours the Labour Party descended into open conflict. Senior MPs met in secret rooms across London, plotting tactics and forging alliances with the ruthlessness of election night. Angela Rayner's faction promoted her as the natural heir, insisting she could reconnect with grassroots, but critics matched their volume, branding her tainted by Starmer's collapse. Wes Streeting worked phones relentlessly, presenting himself as a reformer who could restore credibility. Andy Burnham's name resurfaced, his mayoral post suddenly reimagined as strength rather than liability. But behind every name lay fear, a scramble to survive amid a collapsing edifice. Leaked WhatsApp chats revealed the brutality of implosion. Shadow ministers lashing out with venom, denouncing Starmer as a liar who dragged them all into disgrace. "We should have acted earlier," one message read. Another, colder still. "Now it's survival of the fittest." The facade of unity fell. Allies turned into adversaries overnight, and journalists seized every leak hungrily. MPs no longer concerned themselves with protecting the party's image. They cared only about self-preservation. Westminster corridors became a stage of whispers, betrayals, and shifting loyalties. Reporters described it as watching a shipwreck, survivors clinging to wreckage as the vessel sank beneath them. The press magnified every fracture, fanning the flames. Tabloids screamed slogans like "Labour at war" and "the party that betrayed Britain." Broadsheets printed harsh critiques, questioning whether Labour even deserved survival as a major force. Television networks delivered rolling coverage, treating the implosion as national theatre. Panels debated openly whether Labour had any future at all. Online, the tempest raged louder still. TikTok parodies of Starmer's farewell spread virally. Twitter trended with tags like "Labour lies" and "Never again Labour." Memes painted MPs as clowns, backstabbers, and hypocrites. YouTube live streams dissected each leak, every whisper, pulling record-breaking audiences as ordinary citizens tuned in to witness the downfall of a political titan in real time. Yet, while the digital sphere mocked and jeered, the unions landed their most brutal strike yet. Unite announced it would sever funding indefinitely, branding Labour toxic and unworthy of representing Britain's workforce. The GMB escalated further, accusing the party of betraying its founding principles and demanding sweeping reform before offering a single pound. These declarations didn't just sting, they ripped away Labour's financial heartbeat. For generations, the unions had been Labour's war chest, its ground muscle, its enduring strength. Now that lifeline was gone. Without union money, campaign offices began shuttering. Without volunteers, grassroots networks collapsed. Without credibility, councillors resigned in disgust. The collapse wasn't just political, it was financial, structural, existential. Conservatives inside Number 10 quietly rejoiced. Ministers fanned out across television networks, calling Labour rudderless, dishonest, and finished. The Prime Minister's office issued a statement framing Starmer's resignation as long overdue justice for dishonesty, a line crafted to bury Labour beneath its own hypocrisy. Tory MPs swarmed social platforms with gleeful jibes, mocking Labour as a movement of betrayal and chaos. But behind closed doors, even Conservatives felt unease. A feeble opposition might appear as a gift, yet some feared Britain's democracy itself stood in danger. Who do we run against if Labour dies? One senior Tory reportedly asked. What happens to democracy if the opposition disappears? International partners were less forgiving. In Washington, Democratic officials admitted privately that the implosion of Britain's main challenger was a strategic disaster. French commentators warned the implosion would embolden extremist currents across Europe. German newspapers dubbed it the death of Britain's last hope for stability. In Brussels, EU officials whispered that a shattered Labour permanently undermined Britain's standing in Europe. What began as a single-man scandal was now reshaping Britain's global credibility. Yet the most devastating verdict came not from journalists, rivals, or foreign leaders, but from ordinary people. Focus groups in swing constituencies revealed emotions rarely seen in modern politics. Words like betrayed, disgusted, and never again dominated the discussions. Young voters, once Labour's most loyal base, voiced fury at being deceived. Older voters, who remembered the party's proud history, expressed heartbreak at its collapse. The betrayal was generational, cutting across classes, regions, and ages. For the first time in decades, vast numbers of British voters declared not that they were switching allegiance but that they might never vote again. In that silence, in that retreat of faith, lay the darkest truth of all. This wasn't just the collapse of Labour, it was the collapse of trust itself. By Tuesday evening, Labour was no longer functioning as a party. It was disintegrating in plain sight. The resignation of Keir Starmer had not only left a leadership vacuum, it triggered a total breakdown of the political machine once powering Britain's opposition. Constituency offices nationwide closed their doors. Staffers walked out in tears, carrying boxes of files, knowing their livelihoods were gone. Leaked recordings from headquarters captured the despair, people sobbing at desks, whispering their careers were finished, some openly admitting the party they had devoted their lives to was already dead. Campaign volunteers deleted apps from their phones and quit en masse. Activists torched membership cards on live streams. Emails revealed wealthy donors demanding refunds while others simply vanished without explanation. The financial bloodstream of the party evaporated within 24 hours. What had taken generations to build dissolved before Britain's eyes. The unions, once Labour's most reliable allies, twisted the knife deeper. Unite declared no money would return until Labour proved it could be trusted again. GMB accused the party of betraying workers. Local branches passed motions of no confidence. Without funding, the war chest emptied. Without war chest, campaigns ceased. Regional organizers whispered that bankruptcy was now likely. For decades, Labour had been a towering force. Now it was a hollow shell, stripped of funds, stripped of members, stripped of trust. Inside Westminster, even Labour MPs conceded privately the party might never recover. One senior figure told reporters bluntly, "This is extinction, not defeat." Extinction on the streets. Betrayal boiled into rage. In Birmingham, furious crowds gathered outside Labour offices, waving placards that read "Never Again." In Glasgow, activists staged fiery demonstrations, shredding membership cards before cameras. In Liverpool, lifelong Labour loyalists chanted that the party was finished. Phone lines into headquarters were overwhelmed by furious members demanding refunds. Some described heartbreak, others fury. But the message was identical. Labour had broken their trust and nothing could repair it. Across Britain, citizens who had once defended Labour with pride now spoke with revulsion and anger. For the first time in decades, Labour was not viewed as an alternative to government, but as the problem itself. The Conservatives wasted no time. Ministers appeared across every network portraying themselves as the only guardians of stability. Number 10's press office issued a statement branding Starmer's resignation the inevitable outcome of dishonesty. Tory MPs flooded social media, mocking Labour as a party in ruins. Behind closed doors, aides whispered of an early election to exploit Labour's implosion before recovery was possible. Nigel Farage's Reform UK surged in polls overnight, snapping up disillusioned voters. The Liberal Democrats, long dismissed as irrelevant, clawed their way back into national conversation. Britain's political map was being redrawn in real time, and Labour was nowhere. International reaction only deepened the humiliation. In Washington, Democratic strategists compared the implosion to Watergate, describing it as Britain's political earthquake. European leaders spoke with alarm. German newspapers called it the implosion of Britain's last hope. French commentators warned that Labour's collapse would embolden extremism across Europe. In Brussels, officials admitted that Britain's influence within Europe had been permanently damaged by the destruction of its opposition. The globe watched Britain's democracy unravel, and the humiliation spread hour by hour. At the centre of it all stood Keir Starmer himself, a man shattered by his downfall. Reports circulated that his family had withdrawn into isolation, shielded by heightened security. His wife Victoria had not appeared since the announcement. His children were said to have been pulled from school, protected from harassment and relentless media intrusion. Friends described him as hollow, devastated, crushed by the disgrace of resigning beneath the weight of betrayal. For a man who built his career upon the image of integrity, the implosion was not only political, it was profoundly personal. Political collapse always leaves casualties, but this wreckage stretched far beyond Westminster into Starmer's private life. By midweek, one truth could no longer be denied. Labour was not merely wounded, it was bleeding out. What had once been a powerful engine of British politics now resembled a sinking vessel. Deserted by its crew, stripped of resources and despised by the very people it claimed to serve. Britain's opposition was gone, replaced by silence, bitterness, and uncertainty. Yet in the ruins, one haunting question lingered. Was this collapse the beginning of renewal, or the final act of a party sliding into extinction?